Two people, same city, same age, similar income. 10 years later, one is financially stuck, living paycheck to paycheck, watching expenses grow faster than income. The other has growing investments, passive income, and real financial options. Same world, completely different outcomes. And the difference has nothing to do with luck, intelligence, or how hard they worked. It has everything to do with which financial cycle they were in. And today, you are going to understand exactly how both cycles work. Most people think the wealth gap exists because rich people work harder or are smarter. That is not what the data shows. The wealth gap exists and keeps growing because of cycles. Self-reinforcing financial cycles that once started accelerate automatically. The poverty cycle pulls you down. The wealth cycle lifts you up. And the terrifying part is that most people spend their entire lives in one cycle without ever understanding that switching was always an option. Here is how the poverty cycle works. You earn money, rent comes out, bills come out, debt payments come out, food comes out. By the time every obligation is paid, almost nothing remains, certainly not enough to invest. So no assets are built, no passive income is created, which means next month you are completely dependent on your wages again. The same cycle repeats, month after month, year after year. Poor people pay everyone else first, and there is nothing left for themselves. Today, we are going to break down exactly how both cycles work, not in vague terms, in precise, mechanical detail, because understanding the exact structure of each cycle is what makes switching possible. Once you can see the poverty cycle for what it is, you can stop walking straight into it. And once you understand the wealth cycle, you can start building it deliberately, starting with decisions available to you right now. The poverty cycle starts with a single mechanical problem. Every dollar earned goes directly to expenses: rent, utilities, food, transportation, debt minimum payments. By the time obligations are covered, the income is gone. This is not a moral failure, it is a structural one. When income is entirely consumed by expenses, there is no money available to purchase assets. And without assets, the cycle has no exit. Every dollar earned goes straight to expenses. The cycle begins. Here is what that structural problem produces over time. No investment means no assets. No assets means no passive income. No passive income means total dependence on wages. Total dependence on wages means any interruption, job loss, illness, economic downturn creates immediate financial crisis. And through all of it, the expenses keep coming. The cycle repeats, every month, every year, getting progressively harder to escape as debt accumulates and inflation reduces the real value of wages. Now here is the wealth cycle. It starts with one difference from the poverty cycle. Income is split two ways instead of one. A portion goes to expenses, a portion goes to investments. That split is the entire mechanism. It does not require a large income. It does not require a dramatic sacrifice. It requires one decision, made consistently, to direct some portion of income toward assets before lifestyle consumes it all. Expenses and investments, two destinations instead of one. That is the entire structural difference. And here is what that structural difference produces over time. Investments generate passive income. Passive income supplements wages. The combination of wages and passive income allows for more investment. More investment generates more passive income, which allows for even more investment. The cycle accelerates automatically, without requiring more work, without requiring a raise. The assets grow. The passive income grows. The wealth cycle, once started, feeds itself. Here is the data that explains the wealth gap more clearly than any political argument. Wealthy people earn the majority of their income from assets, investments, business ownership, real estate, financial instruments that generate returns automatically. Poor and middle-class people earn almost entirely from labor, from wages that require their daily presence and physical participation. The rich earn from assets, the poor earn from labor. That one structural difference, compounded over decades, explains almost everything about why the gap keeps growing. And the tax system makes it worse. Labor income, wages and salaries, is taxed at the highest rates. Investment income, capital gains and dividends, is taxed at significantly lower rates in most countries, which means the more you depend on wages, the more the government takes. The more you earn from assets, the less proportionally you pay. The system rewards asset ownership and penalizes labor. The wealthy know this, and they structure their income accordingly. Here is the ceiling problem that traps wage earners permanently. Wages have a ceiling. You can only work so many hours. You can only command so much per hour. At some point, the income from labor maxes out. Assets have no such ceiling. A diversified investment portfolio can grow indefinitely. Passive income from assets has no theoretical limit. There is no 24-hour constraint, no physical limit. Wages have a ceiling. Assets have no ceiling. That is the entire game, and most people are playing only on the capped side. Here is the exact moment where the two cycles diverge. It is not a dramatic moment. It is a quiet one. It is the moment when someone receives income and decides, before lifestyle expands, to direct some portion toward investment. That single decision, made once and then repeated automatically, is the structural beginning of the wealth cycle. The poverty cycle continues because that decision is never made. The wealth cycle begins the moment it is. One decision, one split. The entire trajectory changes. Here is the lifetime picture. Two people with identical starting incomes at age 25. One enters the poverty cycle. One enters the wealth cycle. At 65, 40 years later, the outcomes are not comparable. The poverty cycle person has a work history, social security, and whatever savings survived 40 years of expenses. The wealth cycle person has a compounding asset base, significant passive income, and financial independence potentially decades before 65. Same starting income, same 40 years. Two completely different financial lives. And here is the cost of time. Every year spent in the poverty cycle is not just 1 year of missed investment. It is 1 year of compound growth permanently lost. The money invested at 25 has 40 years to compound. The money invested at 35 has 30. That 10-year difference at 7% compound growth represents hundreds of thousands of dollars. Every year in the poverty cycle is a year you cannot get back. The compounding that did not happen cannot be recovered. The cost is permanent. Why does the poverty cycle continue generation after generation? Not because people are lazy, not because they don't care, but because nobody shows them the exit. The mechanics of the wealth cycle are not taught in school. They are not explained by banks, who profit from the poverty cycle. They are not covered in the financial products marketed to low-income households. The poverty cycle continues because the people in it are never shown clearly how it works, or that a different cycle exists and is accessible to them. Here are 3 steps to switch cycles, starting with your next paycheck. Not when you earn more, not when the debt is gone, not when conditions are perfect. Now, with whatever income you currently have. Because the switch does not require a large income, it requires a structural change, a deliberate redirection of money before the poverty cycle has a chance to consume it. 3 steps, applied consistently. Switch cycles permanently. Step 1. Pay yourself first. Before rent, before bills, before any expense. A fixed amount goes to investment. Even 5%, even $50. The amount matters less than the structural position. By paying yourself first, you are mechanically inserting the wealth cycle split into your financial life. The expenses get paid with what remains. The investment happens first. Every single time. Automatically. That one structural change breaks the poverty cycle at its foundation. Step 2. Create the gap. The wealth cycle requires a gap between what you earn and what you spend. The larger the gap, the faster the cycle accelerates. This means examining expenses ruthlessly, not to deprive yourself, but to identify what is genuinely valued versus what is habitual spending, consuming money that could build assets. Every dollar redirected from unconsidered spending to investment widens the gap, and the gap is exactly where wealth is built. Step 3. Build your first asset. Start the wealth cycle with your first investment, an index fund, a high-yield savings account generating real returns, whatever vehicle is accessible and appropriate for your situation. The first asset is the most important one, not because of its size, because of what it represents structurally. The moment passive income begins, even $1 per month, you are in the wealth cycle. From there, it compounds. From there, it accelerates. Let it build from here. Here is the 1-year comparison. 1 year in the poverty cycle. Income arrives, expenses consume it. Nothing invested, no assets built, no passive income created. Exact same position 12 months later, just older. 1 year in the wealth cycle. Income arrives, investment happens first. Expenses paid with remainder. Small asset base begins. First passive income generated. Position 12 months later, meaningfully different and improving. Same person, same income. The difference starts immediately and compounds from there. Here is why the rich get richer, and it has nothing to do with unfairness or luck. Once the wealth cycle starts, it feeds itself. Investments generate returns. Returns buy more investments. More investments generate more returns. The cycle accelerates without requiring more work or more income. It is self-reinforcing by design. This is not a conspiracy. It is mathematics. Compound growth is unstoppable once it starts. That is why the wealthy get wealthier automatically, and it is available to anyone who starts the cycle. The simple truth is this: both cycles are a choice. Not always an easy choice, not always a fair choice, but a choice. The poverty cycle continues because income is fully consumed by expenses before investment happens. The wealth cycle begins the moment investment happens, before lifestyle consumes everything. Pay yourself first. Create the gap. Build your first asset. 3 steps, 1 switch, and the cycle that has been working against you starts working for you instead.
Switch cycles today. Not next month, not when you earn more. Today, with whatever is available, because the poverty cycle will keep running automatically if you do nothing, and the wealth cycle will keep running automatically once you start it. The compounding works in both directions. The question is only which direction it runs for you. Switch today. Your wealth cycle starts now.